Good afternoon, everyone. This event is being live captioned. Please note that you could turn on or hide the live transcript by pressing the CC Live Transcript button on the Zoom menu. We would like to acknowledge that Wilfrid Laurier University and its campuses are currently occupying the Haldeman Tract, territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. This land is part of the Haldeman Treaty of October 25th, 1784. Welcome to Gentrification and Cultural Erasure, Stories of Resilience from Waterloo Region to Toronto, featuring Aaron T. Francis. Today's event is one of many hosted at Laurier in celebration of Black History Month, also known as African Heritage Month, celebrated all days of the year. Black History Month is an observance dedicated to remembering, celebrating, and visioning the activism, heritage, culture, and arts of Black people in the diaspora, peoples from the African continent, the Caribbean, and the Americas, and many generations on these lands in our shared histories. What began as a week-long educational initiative in the United States in 1926 by historian Carter G. Woodson is now an international month-long event. The Canadian House of Commons officially designated February as Black History Month in 1995. This month is an important celebration that spotlights Black achievement in our intersecting identities, lived experiences, and shared truths, despite the predominant narratives of slavery and racism. We hope that you will register for the many events taking place this month and throughout the year to celebrate and engage in further learning about Black history in Canada and contemporary Black communities. Today's event will be recorded for internal purposes. Any opportunities to view all or part of this recording will be forwarded to those who registered. Please note that recording or sharing this event on your own device is strictly prohibited. Finally, today's webinar will be followed by a Q&A period. Please put all questions into the Q&A feature. We hold a zero tolerance policy for comments and/or questions that are deemed discriminatory or hateful in nature. Any participant engaging in this form of commentary will be removed from the webinar. Now, I'm very excited to hear this talk, but before we get started, I will now pass it over to Hina Mistry, who will introduce Aaron.
Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have Aaron Francis joining us today. Aaron is a doctoral student at the Balsillie School of International Affairs, a multidisciplinary artist, and a curator. He's also the former chair of the City of Kitchener's Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Aaron is well known locally for Vintage Black Canada, a multidisciplinary creative and collaborative initiative that he founded in 2019. The project documents the transnational modern history of the African diaspora in Canada and all it has richly contributed to Canada's cultural milieu. It features pictures captured by his grandfather, Roy Francis, who was a photographer and aerospace engineer. The collection contains photos spanning 100 years of portraits, the daily lives and celebrations of the Black experience across Jamaica, England, and Waterloo Region from the 1960s. This work has been incredibly important in countering mainstream narratives of Black people in Canada and in Waterloo Region as invisible or rooted in grief and suffering. Images from Aaron's Vintage Black Canada initiative have been exhibited at the Art Gallery of Ontario, the University of Waterloo Art Gallery in collaboration with CAFCA, or the Contemporary Art Forum of Kitchener and Area, and at the Band Gallery, which is the Black Artists Network and Dialogue Gallery in Toronto. Currently, Aaron is also producing a documentary in collaboration with Kyle Sawyer and Taylor Jones, who's Digital Sabbath, about his Juno Award-winning uncle, Kitchener-Waterloo's own star, Errol Starr. Aaron, we're so honored to have you here today to speak about your work, and so I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you so much for that welcoming introduction, and thank you, Terry. It's truly an honor to be here. We'll keep this screen up for a moment, just as I speak, or perhaps you can even remove it and go right to me. I don't know if folks can see me. Before I get into the screen sharing aspect of my presentation and talk, quick disclaimer for the folks. I'm not from Toronto, and while my stories of resiliency intersect with Toronto, indeed, like most Blackness in Ontario will intersect with Toronto, I just wanted to give folks a heads up that I had alluded to Toronto in the title of this talk because it was creating space for a panelist counterpart that is not going to be with us at this time. And so I just wanted to give that heads up. I would not personally purport to try to tell Toronto's story on my own. And so hopefully that'll be a future conversation where we can dive deep into Toronto. I am going to be talking about cultural resiliency from the perspective of a Waterloovian myself. I am the product of cultural resiliency. I curate images of Black folks, and these photos are also taken by Black people, Black photographers, and I exhibit these photos. And I remind folks about our historical presence in this region and in this country. And I do so largely on my own terms. And I like to focus on the past, but within a past that is within arm's reach of oftentimes of my own experiences and memories. And in highlighting the history that I like to focus on, it's oftentimes within reference to our contributions to Canadian culture. And I do so from a place rooted in an active relationship with my African identity. I sometimes ask myself, are these contributions to Canadiana, are they deliberately erased from our collective psyche? Perhaps. It wouldn't be the first time such a thing has happened in Canada. I can recall personally a period from my youth where maybe half a dozen Black-owned businesses right in a part of town that one could call Little Jamaica. So we'll call it Little Jamaica. I feel comfortable calling it that. We had a patty shop, we had a grocery store, we had a barber shop, nightclub, hair salon, fashion boutique. And save for the hair salon, these businesses have long closed and have been largely forgotten by many. And new businesses stand there and exist there. And this took place for a number of reasons. And so I'm not speaking from a place of anger, it's a place of curiosity and fascination. What happened to the Black economic community in Kitchener-Waterloo? And we can get into this further, and it's a fun conversation, and it's worthy of a deep dive. But I will say this, downtown Kitchener, there were, in my observations, even as a young person, a disproportionate level of interactions with the police. Yes, I witnessed gentrification occur, and to this day, it's still taking place in downtown Kitchener. But then on an interesting flip side, downtown Kitchener sort of died economically as well, sort of at the apex of the economic hub that was downtown Kitchener's little Jamaica, if you will. So all of the above contributed to these businesses dissipating, and as well, perhaps it contributed to our past or recent accomplishments sort of fading from memory. But I think that it's important that we acknowledge that it doesn't negate the sort of the essentiality and indeed the onus for peoples to collate, collect, curate, and tell their own stories to remind themselves where they're from and where they're going, but also to tell others, of course. And this is in part what I want to discuss today, what I like to call the pillars of cultural resilience. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So this is an image from my grandfather's collection, personal collection. He took this photo. This is Waterloo in the 1960s. Most of the folks there are family members, and then the other folks there are just neighbors. And it's a lovely photo. I like to launch discussions about vintage Black Canada because it's dreamy, isn't it? I always like to acknowledge my grandfather, of course. Hina alluded to him. Roy Francis was a go-to photographer in the region, and one of the few Black photographers at the time. And he was an individual that collected photos, but also took photos himself. And he had an eye for it. And these are some of his other photos. And in long story short, when he passed, I inherited his photos, and they reminded me that I inherited much more from him. But maybe it could be said a deep and loving appreciation for my heritage. one more photo from Roy Francis. This is my family. To the left, and in the red is my grandmother. To the left is my mom. To the left of my grandmother. Those are my uncles. So these are folks that really raised me. And just again, briefly, in terms of vintage Black Canada and this idea that I feel that I am myself a product of cultural resiliency, I was able to turn around and use the photos and create platforms for discussion and conversation and collaboration. And these are just some brief examples: CTV, Bank Gallery, Gladstone, and there's a magazine down there. And okay, I thought this one more from Vintage Black Canada. This was one of the posters for an event that was held at CG called Documenting Black Families. It was done so in collaboration with Bank Gallery. TD Bank put up some money for it. And this is a photo of a local friend of mine, Jody Brown, and his brother. And when I started this initiative, it would be 3 years ago, basically like this month. And at this time, I was already found that I was riding a wave of sort of photographic renaissance. At the same time, CG was actually presenting this documentary film called Through a Lens Darkly. And that documentary film was all about the essentiality, the importance of photography and sharing Black narratives and sort of creating, if you will, a communal ideology, or at least, again, were platforms for discussion. And so when I started Vintage Black Canada, it was exciting for me. It was new to me. But once I started doing research and once others are pointing it out to me that, well, what you're doing isn't anything new. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, but that's okay. Thank God. Continue. And maybe someone else can say the same one day. James Van Der Zee just comes to mind right away because he's a photographer who captured much of Harlem in the 1920s, we'll say. And this is there's a book that my grandfather had on his shelf among many books, but it was a James Van Der Zee photography book, a Black photographer that took photos of Black people in their element. And so important in this conversation of the pillars of cultural resiliency. Another pillar I would suggest is Black news media. So this is Share newspaper. And even today, you can go into a Caribbean or West Indian store and find this. But perhaps it's not known that this has been around since 1978. Arnold A. August founded it. And reading his biography, I was so impressed. Arnold emigrated from Trinidad and Tobago and was funding it out of pocket when he first started it. Could only do a couple thousand issues a month. Today, I think I read that they do 50,000 issues. Canada's largest ethnic newspaper. That just so happens to be my uncle on the cover. And this is April 1986, as the article title alludes to. And again, it's important for me to point out that while my uncle is currently the subject of a documentary and is a Juno Award winner, and you could perhaps YouTube him and find all sorts of media references. In the mid 80s, it was mostly at the beginning of his career, it was mostly people of color that were talking about him or giving him platforms to talk, and when it comes to, say, being on the cover of Share, that certainly preceded him being on the cover of The Record or something like that. You know what I mean? And it would be impossible if we didn't have access to our own media platforms. And the thing is, I'll give another example to see here. Here's I's voice. This is, as it says there, Black Canadian photojournalist, 1970s, 1990s. So you can imagine there was an army of photographers for Share magazine. In Kitchener-Waterloo, we had Link. Selma Harvey started Link. Some of you may know that Link went on to become the Link Festival which, well, Link began sort of servicing, I would say, a Caribbean audience. The Link Festival, it coalesced to have, African Diaspora and African crafts, arts, culture. And well, all of this to say that over the years, these independent newspapers, these independent ethnic newspapers amassed so much photography. And thankfully, Band Gallery put together a book. So this is the cover of a book called Ears, Eyes, Voice. And they've curated images from, decades of Black photojournalism in Southern Ontario. Really worth a deep dive. Again, if it wasn't for these people existing, we wouldn't have a sort of necessary echo chamber that we needed so that so-and-so could feel proud about where they're from, or that so-and-so could communicate to whomever what they've done. Again, we had Lincoln Kitchener, and briefly I could talk about, and within this context of news media, definitely radio played such a huge role in ensuring that the culture was sustained. And what I mean is, and you can imagine, or maybe you can't, but in the 1980s, I turned on the radio. For someone such as myself, okay, perhaps I could be easily placated, but for my mom, or even my grandparents, where are they going to hear music that reminds them of who they are? Or perhaps where are they going to do music that is made by people that look like them? And sure, it's easy to say, well, this American artist or so-and-so, this popular artist, that should satisfy your cultural desires, but it goes much deeper than that. And so for us, it was often college radio. And while these weren't Black owned per se, some of the biggest, longest running shows at like CJIQ, which is Conestoga College, there was a decades long running Caribbean radio show. For myself in the 90s, sure, like I had my Michael Jacksons and Naughty by Nature's on the radio if I was lucky, but those are gatekeeped cultures. Gatekeeped, that is, someone is gatekeeping what I get to see of my culture. But whereas when we had the college radio, there was this radio show called The Wax Jungle, and B Mello hosted that, and he was playing the stuff that they were playing in New York radio, or they're playing in Brooklyn, or they're playing wherever, but it wasn't gatekeeped. It was unfiltered culture, and that's so important and so necessary, and it helped make me who I am today. So forever grateful to CKMS 100.3, the Wax Jungle radio show. Another pillar I would suggest are Black cultural institutions. So this photo, if I may, is a photo by Roy Francis. It's currently viewable enlarged at the University of Waterloo Art Gallery on the exterior. And this photo is of my family at Caribana in 1969. So 2 years after they had started Caribana. And Caribana, I mean, if I could briefly touch on it, is a perfect example of the importance of a pillar of cultural resiliency. My grandparents had only just a few years prior came to Canada. And can you imagine how wonderful it must have felt to go to Caribana and realize that our culture can thrive within Canada, and not only thrive, perhaps even captivate and reach for the stars. When it first began, it was a part of like a Canada bicentennial, so it would have been 1967. And of course, Caribana went on to become when they described it in its heyday, it was the largest Caribbean festival like in North America. Um, it was quite sad to see when Caribana was taken. It was in the early 2000s when it was taken from the original founders, and there was this huge court dispute, but I'm not going to get into all of that. But I'll show that. So this is, say, 1969, my grandparents, Caribana, loving it. And then look at 1970. This is Kitchener now. And this is something called KW Winterfest. So the gentleman on the left, the far left, that's my grandfather, Ray Francis, and that's his friend, Ian Masters. And they're at KW Winterfest. You know, a year after going to Caribana, they come back to Kitchener. They're living in Kitchener, mind you, but they come back and they're obviously inspired because there's this thing called KW Winterfest, and I'm pretty sure it's at like Schwaben House or one of those places. And these guys set up shop and they're cooking Jamaican food. They're serving Jamaican food. They're serving Red Stripe. They're wearing their clothes. They're living out loud. And I'm positive that there was a sort of cumulative effect, seeing what was possible going to a place like Toronto. And that's why I said the stories of resiliency continually intersect with Toronto. I know I would go to Toronto and come back feeling charged up in my Blackness sometimes. And I don't know if I could unpack that for you all, but there's a lot of Black folks in Toronto. And in fact, Toronto is almost becoming, in a strange way, definitely when it comes to like the youth vernacular, they all speak like a sort of bastardized version of Jamaican patois, which is just fascinating to me. Because before it used to just be West Indians that spoke patois, and now it's the whole city of Toronto. And then here's just another photo from the KW Winterfest. That was a performer. I had a couple other images, but I decided to use these two, and these are just direct from my vintage Black Canada. Still on the topic of Black cultural associations. Did I mention Black? Yeah, Black cultural associations. This one I found fascinating. This is just a clip from the archives. This is, don't bother having to read all of this. I just simply wanted to point out that this is an image of my uncle amongst a number of other artists receiving a sort of notoriety, receiving an award from something called the Black Music Association of Canada. So this is, again, like mid 80s. This is before the Junos. This is before anything. He was receiving awards and he was receiving recognition and a platform from his community. And it's so important. And the BMAC eventually went on to become, in the 90s, early 2000s, UMAC, which was the Urban Music Association of Canada. It doesn't have the same sort of, I would say, cachet that it does today, because so much of Black musical culture has been subsumed into popular culture. So, you know, there are those that would argue, well, why do you need a distinct association? Why would you need, why would you need that, period? And I don't know if I'm going to have all of the answers to why we need it, except again, just to refer back to this idea of gatekeeping and to determine who gets to stand before the audience once we are giving up the reins to someone else, particularly if they're an outsider to a particular culture. It's, you lose control, you lose agency. And I think, you know, just on the flip side, it's like we have an onus to keep that agency. There was a time period, a dark time period in the Junos. I mean, first of all, in 1989, when Maestro Fresh West won, they were forced to create a category just so they could acknowledge him, because he had sold so many records, but they had refused up to that point to have even a hip hop category, right? You know, so you're going to have some people say, well, who cares what the Junos think? But as a Canadian artist, We do nonetheless, be, you know, Black or not. And so this is an ongoing sort of struggle, but also dynamic. Years later, when they would, let's say, certain artists, when the rap category is well established now, but you know what they would do is that they wouldn't broadcast it during daytime or during the actual show. So you would watch the Junos from home and you wouldn't see the hip hop performer receiving their awards. This is in the 90s. I remember watching the Rascals, and the Rascals in that circumstance, they refused to accept their award because of what they understood of still the gatekeeping. Even though they were able to win an award, they weren't able to celebrate it shoulder to shoulder with other Canadian musicians. Yeah, moving on. Oh, and just one more again of my uncle. And this one, I liked it because I apologize that this image is faded. This is clipping right from newspaper. But in the caption, it reads that this event took place, these fans, they're sort of gathered around my uncle in the back. It says that at Black Awareness Day. So this idea again of Black cultural associations and the importance that they can create in communities. And so I'm assuming, and I haven't spoken to my uncle about this, but I'm assuming, much like some kind of event that's taking place like today or this month, that someone created a platform and someone, that person is ideally was an ally, because now you have a local Canadian Black musician in a room with people that could celebrate with him, and then that's important. And perhaps at the furthest end of the spectrum, these are some images that have been published with a magazine called Pitch Magazine. And Pitch Magazine is it's a Black magazine out of Western McMaster, out of McMaster. And with Pitch Magazine, they asked me for an article, and so I created a sort of a photo essay that I titled African Diasporic Fellowcraft and Esoteric Black Canada. And this imagery, I think, is probably fascinating, but I wanted to talk about within the context of Black cultural associations. I grew up as a young boy around Black Masons. The Masonic Temple in Waterloo is still there to this day. They're not as active as they once were, but at the time, my grandfather was a member. So at the time, say, you know, we would go hang out with my granddad and he would take us to the Masonic Temple, and they'd be holding their own, we would say jams, you know, their own fetes in there. And it wasn't just Jamaicans, it was West Indians of all sort. But nonetheless, like having that association really made me who I am today, because I'd be, you know, here I am, fine, sure, I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo, I am a member of this community, absolutely. But don't lose sight of your culture, Aaron. And this is how I was not able to lose sight, because on weekends, I'd be hanging out and doing things that even like I really didn't even like to do, I'll be honest. I remember we'd do these races. They'd always have us doing these races. They'd always have us doing races, like, but at the same time, they were organizing picnics. You know, I was constantly being able to get, you know, eat Jamaican food or West Indian food, and just even to hear patois, you know, even to be able to hear that to this day, to hear it and to understand it. Not everyone has that blessing, but thankfully, because of the Black Cultural Association, I was able to, and I firmly believe it is a pillar of cultural resiliency. Oh, here's one of the picnics I alluded to. We would rent buses, we would drive to like Fantasy Island in Buffalo, and we'd have to have these like three-legged races, sack races, standard races. But then, you know, we'd barbecue, calypso music, all these things. This is how I grew up. And I know that not everyone gets this opportunity. So I am grateful. Lastly, I wanted to talk about Black-owned business as a pillar of cultural resiliency. when you think about when I mentioned the Share and Link magazines, these places were typically available, if not in a Black-owned business per se, then definitely a business with the cultural acuity, and as a business that was a member of the cultural community. And so when you have that sort of ownership, then you become a conduit for the culture and allow the culture to be able to strive towards resiliency. Also in these shops, so this is, I will say, this is my mom's shop in like 1990, 1991. It was downtown Kitchener. It was a clothing boutique. They're sort of celebrating there. I think I have one more. Let's see here. Yeah. So they're celebrating her opening. You know, it was necessary. You know, Le Chateau would have whatever it had, but my mom's shop, she was selling, you know, Black designers, two Black guys from Toronto. Who else was selling that stuff but Black businesses? So then there's the conduit here in Toronto. She was going to New York and bringing clothes. And like, of course, when you go into a store, she's playing music. There's no gatekeeping. The music is our music. The clothing is our clothing. But you see, it's not some sort of divisive environment, obviously, because at the same time, we were proud Canadians. But that ability to sort of facilitate cultural association, it goes hand in hand with having a business, I would argue. This is another photo this is actually just outside my mom's shop. And this is myself, my younger brother, and Lennox Lewis. Before Lennox became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, he was just, you know, Kitchener's golden boy. And this is the area that I alluded to. If you see the top left of the photo, this is Arrow Saint Caribbean Cove restaurants over there. Most of the businesses behind them are Black owned. And that's all changed over. And it's certainly nuanced as to why these businesses, cut and style still there though, I will say that. Kudos to them. It's nuanced as to why these businesses aren't there. On one hand, all right, this last photo, I swear, this is across the street, sort of where Lennox was. There was a club, and it was a Black-owned club, and we would do talent shows there every year. So this is me at a talent show with my cousin and all those kids back there. They all performed, and we all got trophies, and the room was filled up with family and friends, and it was incredibly competitive. And you know, I'm wearing a tux, you can tell. But again, could this have taken place at, I don't know, anywhere else if it wasn't a Black-owned business? I really don't think so. And I think it's a part of why I have a certain cultural resilience. When I said at the onset, I am the product of cultural resiliency. It's these things that I am alluding to. That there. So I hope I haven't gone over time. How are we doing for time, Hina?
We're still good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I'm not ignorant of the fact that right now in Kitchener-Waterloo, you can get more Jamaican food than has ever been physically possible in my entire lifetime, from what I've observed. There's fully like 7 or 8 like Jamaican restaurants. And so while the community that I grew up in was very concentrated and very localized, it has arguably spread apart, but I think it remains to be seen, but I think it's a good thing. I think that now that there's this restaurant here and that restaurant there, and not just one place, I think that has a lot of potential for good. And I also want to say that when the Jamaicans were downtown Kitchener or the West Indians, and they're gone now, but when you go to downtown Kitchener where they were, there's a whole plethora of ethnicities. And I think that's a great thing too. I think it's I think we kind of almost pioneered things in a way. Prior to us, there was, and there's still down there, like there's like a Pecci shoes, and like Pecci was a German-owned like shoemaker, like right downtown Kitchener. We were some of the first, but we didn't have to be the last, and I think that's a positive thing as well. Is there anything else? I also want to say this. I think what I've observed as well, just I don't have the sort of scientific basis for this, but I know that a lot of Black folks moved to Toronto, and I think that sort of concentration that I talked about was more possible in Toronto, and so maybe there's something to be said about that's what people yearn and desire. But sadly, I'm not sure if any of you are aware, one of the places in Toronto where there was a heavy concentration of West Indian culture, it's more or less been gentrified to no end. And this is Eglinton West. They're building a subway down there, and it's very hard to have a sustainable business down there. Again, I didn't want to try to speak or purport to speak on behalf of Toronto, so I think it's worth having follow-up conversations about this. But everything I've spoken about, it's dear to my heart because I have a memory of it, but I also have photos of it, and I think I am the product of it. And so it was a pleasure to share. I don't know if anyone had any questions or anything of that sort.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron. I do want to invite people to ask questions if they do have them. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A feature, and you'll be able to submit your questions there, and we'll make sure that we keep track of them so that we get a chance for Aaron to answer them. While people are thinking of questions, though, I did have a few that I wanted to ask you. I guess just first of all, thank you so much for for sharing these, both just in the projects that you're doing throughout the city, and these sort of like the public art displays and the Instagram account. Like they're all really important stories. So I guess like one of the things I was hoping that you could speak to are a question that I had is just, what do histories of Black communities beyond major urban centers in Canada, like Toronto, tell us? What does it mean to focus on places like Waterloo Region and speaking about Black experiences? And why do you think, in your opinion, like why are they so important to share as well? And what do they maybe tell us?
I really appreciate that question. I think they tell us perhaps more nuanced Black experiences, but also I think they also confirm or at least highlight what the previously non-existent. And what I mean by this is, I remember speaking with just Black folks in Toronto all throughout my years, but especially within the context of this archive. And they're still at this point surprised that there were Black people in Kitchener-Waterloo, let alone Jamaicans, let alone Jamaicans of renown. And so it's always fun, but almost super important for me to communicate these stories, because when I talked about things being subsumed within one another, oftentimes the Kitchener-Waterloo stuff that happens here just gets subsumed within Toronto, and people forget that, and not just people in Toronto. I mean, Kitchener-Waterloo people forget that good things can happen here. But going back to what I said earlier about this sort of nuanced Black experience, like for example, when Canada finally started letting West Indians into the country, it's a bit of a generalization, but I'll say this: a good number of them went to Toronto, and they went to places called Jane and Finch, Rexdale, and these places. Toronto is so big, it's that these places were instantly sort of segregated from the rest of the city center. And to this day, you kind of see that in Toronto. Whereas Kitchener-Waterloo, my grandparents came the same time. It was less segregated. And so it's fascinating to see the effect that that might have had. My grandfather was able to buy a home right away. He was able to, just, his first job was at the University of Waterloo. His second job was at Raytheon. His third job was at ComDev, and that was it. And he was good. I think that living in Toronto, the big city, was presented more challenges, as it does for one, but particularly for people of color. And I think that as much as Black people were othered here in Kitchener-Waterloo, we were othered just that much less, so that we could succeed just that much more.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for expanding on that. It's really interesting sort of hearing your insights on that. I'm going to turn now to one of the questions that came in from the audience. So this is from Dr. Carol Duncan. Dr. Duncan asked, does your research take into consideration migration patterns? Is your research specifically Caribbean oriented, or do you also look at earlier Black migrations from the US in the 19th century?
Thanks for your question. So I've been fortunate enough that this is a passion project. And so my research is still very much focused on the Caribbean, because the great number of my source materials come from that region and from my families. And I'm still amazed and fascinated and just thirsty for more knowledge about my culture. And so when you ask about migration patterns, I think maybe my previous answer might somewhat have alluded to that, but no, I have a very distinct sort of time period where I'm looking at, which is essentially following World War II. In the UK, they kind of call it the Windrush generation, but when my family came here in the early 1960s, I focus on these sort of conversations and these sort of narratives for the time being, because I think Waterloo Region in and of itself is just a fascinating place that punches above its weight. And then to see like, oh, the West Indians that came here also punch above their weight. Like when I talk about like Lennox Lewis, I shouldn't, hopefully I didn't downplay it, but this is a guy that beat Mike Tyson in a boxing ring, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. But he was a Black man that was raised in Kitchener-Waterloo. Jamal Murray is the most highest paid Canadian athlete of all time. He's a Black man that's raised in Kitchener-Waterloo. Even Malcolm Gladwell, he's Jamaican descent, Waterloo Region guy, and my uncle winning the Juno. So like by the time of like 1990 came around, I had already seen so many things that Black people had accomplished in this small town. And to me, it was worth diving deeper and studying and trying to understand why we were so fortunate in Waterloo Region.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like how starstruck you were sort of situated here. Yeah, it's so fascinating to me to like see those things in your photographs and hear you talk about them as well. Another question that came in through the Q&A was, how do you feel that gentrification will further impact the downtown Kitchener core? It seems like there's such a turnover and no real identity. Also, do you feel the lack of ethnic enclaves in the KW region presents a challenge to maintain and strengthen ethnic communities, or do you feel that the lived intermingling of cultures is more of a benefit and builds community?
Yeah, definitely the intermingling of cultures is where it's at. And I ended up moving to a part of Kitchener where I used to call it like Highland Hills area, just as a grown man. And I just loved how there's just Ethiopian restaurants and Arabic grocery stores and all the other things. And to me, it reminded me, it was the closest thing I had seen to like the little Jamaica of my heyday. And it really, like, to me, it gave me hope and optimism. I think Kitchener-Waterloo's always been this like strangely diverse place, so many things notwithstanding. But I can remember growing up on Chandler Drive, and in my row house there was an Afghan beside me, an El Salvadorian, a Jamaican, a Newfie, another Jamaican, and like Vietnamese. And so like this was my experience growing up. And I think even to this day, you can kind of see that reflected. In high school, it was Serbians, Somalis, like. So I think that these things actually make Kitchener-Waterloo stronger.
So thank you. I'm going to ask a question of my own before I turn again to some of the audience questions. So one of the questions that I had was, what challenges do you face in sharing these histories alongside other narratives of the history of Waterloo Region? And I was wondering, what were some of the biggest challenges in putting this work together and sharing it?
Sure. This was surprisingly unchallenged. When I started doing this work, I didn't have a scanner. I was going to the Waterloo Region Library, or KPL, if you will. And so like right in and of itself, right away, it's like, oh, this is pretty straightforward. And right away, I just got a lot of love and support. Doing my first show in town at CG, that was a big deal. Being at UAG now, like things like that, like it's been a blessing. And so that just reaffirmed for me that I was on the right path and right track. I've said this before, but there are other things that I've tried much harder at and gotten much less of a result. And so, maybe I would say that sort of tongue in cheek, but this has been the most rewarding thing I've done thus far. And especially when I talk about the documentary, working on it, it's, the first time I watched the trailer that we created for our investors and select audiences, like I teared up because it's so good. And I have all this footage of my uncle from Electric Circus and these interviews at the Junos and all these things. And it's just like boxes and boxes of stuff that like here, like I feel like I've inherited a treasure trove, like it almost realigned my thinking, where I'm like, am I to be the family archivist? Is this and then really like beyond the family, like sort of cultural. And so in Waterloo Region, there's been a lot of support. It's just been peer support, nothing but support, no obstacles at all, I'll be honest. And I think maybe the hardest part is trying to understand the narrative that will emerge. But as a social scientist, I don't want to project, and so I'm still learning and listening.
Thank you for that. So we have a question that came in from an anonymous attendee. So they said, thanks so much for this. It's interesting to speak about gentrification regarding ethnic shops. In my experience, my family owned and opened businesses when their educational experiences could not provide them with a job in the formal office economy. How can we balance or encourage and preserve these memories as our communities experience upward social mobility and are less likely to be entrepreneurs or open shops?
Yeah. Well, me starting an Instagram page, I just wanted to tell some stories. Like, I had all these cool photos, and let me tell some stories. And over time, I determined sort of an artistic statement and a philosophy. But in terms of preservation, like I said, what I realized what I was doing was nothing new, and that there's this page called Veterans and Veteranas and Rucas, and it's like mid 90s Latinx culture in Southern California. There are pages for everyone and everything, and all of it is worth preserving and highlighting, discussing. My most recent one, the name eludes me, but it's all just like throwback, like Vietnamese 80s stuff. And it's just so cool. And so in sort of answer to your question, if you have some images, or if you're able to find images that recall for you certain memories, I was just sharing them. Even like this work that I'm doing, and potentially the work that you're going to be doing, is about ensuring that this survives the next cultural epoch, wherein you could have the greatest home video on a Betamax, but if no one has a Betamax to watch it on, it's almost like it doesn't exist, or it never existed, which is a sad and awful thought. So there's almost like an onus to ensure that this stuff gets preserved and translated, and again, like transcends these cultural technological shifts, because they're worth it.
Awesome. Thank you. There's a question that I was also wondering about that someone asked in the chat. So they asked, can you please tell us where you're looking for or finding archival materials outside of the materials that you inherited from your grandfather?
Yeah, thank you. So I've put out sort of minute calls for people to submit. And so I've been fortunate enough, when I did the CG exhibit, it wasn't just my family stuff. It was 4 or 5 families from Waterloo Region that submitted works that they allowed me to reproduce and mount. And when we did the show in Toronto, it was the same thing. It was half a dozen in Toronto. So yeah, I usually just use my website, and people message me, or I'm constantly scouring, and I see a really cool photo and say, hey, can I post this, that sort of thing. It's really kind of informal. I've mused about the idea of setting up a sort of page where people can just submit stuff, but I like the pace is such that I can still do it by like with a human touch. And I'd like to, there is a certain aesthetic that I do look for, but that's just my page, so I don't want to get inundated necessarily. I would like to get more from others, and there are a lot of people I ask for stuff and they say, yeah, for sure, I'll get it to you, and then I never hear back. So that's frustrating. But at the same time, my grandfather, like I said, was a photographer. There's so much stuff, and then when I'm talking about sourcing, it doesn't stop with his photographs, because I inherited all his vinyl records, and I've done the odd post about the art on these vinyl records, and then the photography on these vinyl records. That is, in and of itself, is a worthy project to curate. West Indian vinyl art. He left me all his cassettes, and left me all his VHS tapes. If there was something on TV back in the day, it was like black, he'd record it. So like I have to still go through all his VHS tapes, and so I have much work to do, as much as I wouldn't mind getting other source material from others.
I guess a follow-up question I had to that one was sort of the newspaper clippings and like Black-owned news media and those kinds of things. Like, were those also things that came from the collection, or were those things that you found sort of like elsewhere and maybe like a local archive or something like that? I was a little curious about where those sorts of things.
Yeah. No, that's all in the collection. Like it's the idea of being an archivist isn't that strange to me, because my grandfather was one. And this is when I say like, oh, my grandfather's passing, going through his collection and learning about myself, like, oh, this is why I am the way I am, because my grandfather is very much a cataloger, or someone that could collate or curate, and he his collections are now my collections, but I had similarly meticulous collections of my own, and I had almost forgotten where it had come from. My grandfather has images going back like 100 years, like legitimately. And so when it came to getting my uncle's stuff, like we have a book of clippings of his stuff because it was important to us. And so, yeah, I have no, thank goodness, I have no I don't lack any sort of source material at this moment.
Thanks so much. I guess one thing that kind of strikes me from you sort of describing that, like a lot of this is stuff that, either community members have given you or that you've like inherited from somebody, but the onus has really been on like you and other community members to kind of like preserve these things, like keep them safe, keep them together, and also then like share them. And it in some ways gave you a lot of like ownership, it seems like, over how those stories were told. But that's also something that just really struck me from the way that you're talking about how, how you manage your source material and how you come across it, and then like what is actually there, and then also just your plans for like being that community archivist too. It's interesting, but also like kind of shows something about like diaspora histories and their archives, right? Like how ephemeral, like how fragile they are, that it's oftentimes like the onus of people like you who are kind of doing these things to keep them safe, right?
I want to say too, if I may, like my grandfather's Super 8 films of Caravana in the 80s, when I finally was able to develop those reels and I watched them, and I was so blown away. I'd never seen anything like this. And then I did a deep dive, and I looked and I looked and I looked, and there is no other footage like that of Caravana in the 80s. It's ours. And that's why it's in the AGO right now, because it's that level of cataloging that was taking place, at least in my grandparents' household.
I'm going to turn back to the questions that came in through the Q&A. So we have another question from Carol Duncan. So again, Aaron, thanks for your great presentation. I grew up in Eglinton West in the early 1970s after moving to Canada from Antigua. I remember Monica's, Wisdom's Barber Shop, Jamal Taylor, Randy's Patties, Spence Bakery, and many more. It was an immigrant neighborhood with Italian and more recently arrived Caribbean immigrants. Do you consider cultural interactions and change over in so-called immigrant neighborhoods in the KW context?
Well, could you repeat that last part? Do I consider them? Is that what the question is?
Yes. So do you consider cultural interactions and change over in so-called immigrant neighborhoods in the KW context?
Well, I mean, they've changed, but they're sort of like, how do I put this? Perhaps the ethnicities have changed, but I think so much of their experiences are familiar to past generations. Like I know, for example, say my good friend grew up at Moorgate, and Moorgate, not to single out a community, but as long as I can recall, Waterloo, it's been like a tougher neighborhood, just like where I'm from, Chandler Drive. And at that time, it was all like, he's Guyanese, for say, so like there's all kinds of particular types of ethnicities in that neighborhood. And then today, one could say that it's like say Eastern Europeans or Central Europeans, something like that. And I don't know if that their experience is much different than ours was. I really don't. And I think the same thing, like I said, with Chandler Drive, the El Salvadorians and Jamaicans and the people from Newfoundland were all having the same experiences. So even when now you go to Chandler Drive and it's people mostly from East Africa, one could say, I don't think that their experiences are that much different, but it's a matter of like how much agency are people given in those circumstances as well. And like Chandler Drive is a place that they built, at the foothills of the highway, and across from Mount Trashmore, which they've renamed to something fancy now, but it was a dump that they put dirt over. But now I forget what it's called now, McLennan Park, but it was called Mount Trashmore then, rightly so. And there was a gas factory and a pipe factory, and the bus depot was there. And so this areas weren't necessarily created for a variety of experiences, I would suggest. So I think it's going to be a challenge for anyone in those circumstances to have a different experience than the people that came before them.
Okay. I'm going to turn to another question that I had for you. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how you chose to, I guess, address or talk about how racism might have shaped the lives of and lived experiences of the people that are depicted in the exhibit. I know that it's obviously like the whole point of the exhibit is also to challenge it and to decenter that it's all about grief, it's all about suffering and all those things, but obviously those things still play a role in shaping like the experiences of the people who are depicted in the exhibit, so and in the project. So I was wondering maybe if you could speak a little bit to how like you made decisions about talking about how talking about racism or addressing it, or figuring out like where maybe that conversation like fits into the project.
Sure. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a bit of a softie. I don't like dwelling, and I don't want to gloss over the traumatic experiences of my community, myself, my family. I've heard it all. We've seen it all. But with my project, I wanted to focus on candid experiences. I wanted to showcase Black folks in moments of joy and camaraderie, because so much of what you see on television is a fetishization of Black trauma and sort of these narratives that are kind of extreme narratives, and I liked the idea of like just focusing on Black suburbia, if you will. To me it was kind of like a happy place for me. So everything that's you've ever witnessed in a movie, or anything you've ever witnessed in a movie, it's taken place in this town, Kitchener-Waterloo, and people of diverse ethnicities have experienced it. I guarantee you. And yeah, I'm in a position to tell these stories too, with knowledge and experience and with legitimacy. But right now, at least with the photos, I was capturing these candid moments. I will say that with my uncle's documentary we're working on, he talks about why he left the music industry behind, and it has to do with his sort of personal struggles. But like even with that, I'll be honest, it was his decision to take the narrative that way, his decision as an individual. So I really that's just my participatory approach, and that's how it makes sense. And so yeah, for the time being, I guess there's sort of stages to how deep I want to go with the experiences. And I think hopefully some of these photos, they speak for themselves anyways.
Thanks so much for that. I'm gonna take a minute just to read some of the comments that came in through the Q&A, and ask just one last time, if the audience had any more questions to submit, feel free to submit that through the Q&A. We do have some time left to take a few more questions, so just reminding you. But yeah, some comments that came in through the Q&A included just from Tolu Coyote, thank you for sharing your personal story. How can we, this was a question. Thank you for sharing your personal story. How can we pass along your message to young students about the importance of building community and being connected to their cultures?
Yeah, book me to talk to them. Or just tell them to go to my IG page, or I think we have to also try to encourage young folks to speak with the elders. When I showed that original photo and I said all these folks raised me, and I talked about standing on the shoulders of giants. For whatever reason, maybe being because I was an older brother, I always was just observing like older folks and listening to what they talked about. And I was always the person that was frustrated if there was some sort of, like, I would listen to a song and my mom would be like, oh, this is just a sample of some song from the Gap band in the 70s or something. I'd want to know that sample. And so I was just always wanting to know the true history behind something. And I think once you show someone the connectedness between history and the present, I think that they honestly want to chase it down themselves. So maybe even start out like that, showing them the interconnectedness of it all. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's so much of what's going on right now in popular culture and otherwise that it's just a rehash of when I was younger. And I know saying that makes me sound old, but hey.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, another comment that came in through the chat. Erin, thanks for your great presentation. I grew up in Eglinton West in the early 1970s after moving from Canada, to Canada from Antigua. I remember all these different businesses. Yeah, sorry, I think that was already covered, but yeah. And then yeah, just another comment, just thanks. This is so intimate and evocative, really inspired. So like, thank you. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I did have actually one last question to wrap things up before we do close the session. So again, before we wrap up, I was wondering if you could tell the audience about any upcoming projects that you're working on, things that we should be keeping an eye out. You mentioned a book, a documentary, so feel free to tell us more about those things if you'd like.
Sure, thanks. I appreciate that. Eventually, I'm going to create a central hub that doesn't rely on Instagram. I'm doing the back end stages of that, so that what I do and the work that I'm doing doesn't rely on Instagram to communicate it to you. So that'll be the first big thing, a website launch. This spring as well, we'll be revealing more details behind the documentary on my uncle. And ideally, the documentary is one of many. But if not, this project is something that it will be able to stand on its own, and I have the highest aspirations for it. The Digital Sabbath, they're so dope at what they do that I'm like truly excited about this documentary about my uncle, and the fact that, you know, thank God he's alive and participating on it, and he hasn't lost his cool. And really, like, the good number of photos I hold back so that it's like all my photos that I post on Pitch Black Canada aren't him. But I mean, he's hyper photogenic and super talented, and this sort of rare individual born in Jamaica, lived in England, then lived in Canada, and then for Kitchener-Waterloo, you know, achieved the highest accolade a Canadian musician can achieve. And then decided he didn't want anything to do with that. So he's just a fascinating individual. And aside from that, I will have hopefully some new public exhibits to talk about, but I haven't confirmed them yet. So for the best way to stay in touch for the time being is through my Instagram, Vintage Black Canada, or you could just email me. You know, I'm not too hard to find.
Awesome. Well, I guess with that, I just wanted to say thank you for spending time with us and chatting and sharing both like the collection, and then also just for, you know, staying for this really great conversation after. I'm excited to see, you know, what sorts of things you do like upcoming in the upcoming months and years. So yeah, and I think it's really important work that you're doing locally. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Really do.
So with that, I just wanted to say a few words as thank you to everyone. So I'd really like to thank Christy Purnell, who provided the live captions for today. And thank you to everyone for attending today's event, for submitting questions, really great questions and comments. Thank you so much. And finally, I'd just like to thank our event sponsors, which include the Office of the Associate Vice President, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I should also let you know that the next Black History Month event hosted by Laurier is called Empowering Racialized Communities as Research Collaborators and Agents of Change, which is part of the Inspiring Conversations series as well. And so I've posted into the chat some information if you want to learn more about just readings and things that different Black History Month event organizers this year have posted. We've got the Laurier Library has a virtual book display. Laurier Bookstore has another virtual book display where if you're interested in purchasing some of those books, feel free to check out those links in the chat. And then if you're interested in learning more about all the different events that are being hosted at Laurier for Black History Month, that link is also in the chat. So make sure that you check those things out. I've also got the handle for Vintage Black Canada posted in the chat as well. So please do feel free to please do check that out. It's really awesome. It's a really amazing project to see. And yeah, thanks so much everyone for sharing your afternoon with us. Really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.